Dysfunktone.
Welcome back to All That Jam, where music has no limits. I'm joined today by Dysfunktone, 3/4 of Dysfunktone. How you guys doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Cool.
Awesome.
Good.
Stoked to be here.
We interviewed Matt Ruffino last week, and he mentioned you guys. And when Matt Ruffino speaks, people listen. I guess you had recorded a song, Circadian Rhythm, at his studio, and there may be more coming out of that. But why don't we start off, just run around the horn here and start with you, Dakota. Let us know your name and what you play, and then maybe get into the origin story of the band.
I'm Dakota. I play drums.
I'm Brandon. I play guitar.
Rob, play guitar and keys.
Nice. So 2015. Take me back to Rockaway in 2015.
You guys mind if I take a little bit of this one?
Sure.
Please.
So we all went to high school together. I was 2 years older than them, and Brandon and Rob played together all the time for like years. They always just were like fiddling around on guitar together, and we were in the same friend group later on, but we weren't necessarily all friends. Me and Rob were kind of friendly. Brandon kind of thought I was a dick. And then, but we would always end up at the same parties together. And our friends were always telling us like, man, you guys should really jam. Like you all listen to the same type of music. You guys would all like, and it just never worked out. For a year or two, people were always saying to us that we should play together. And it just never ended up working out. We just never got a chance to do it. And then one random day in the wintertime in 2015, Rob messaged me and was like, hey man, what are you doing today? You want to jam? And I was like, yeah, where? And he told me at our friend's house. And I think my first question was, can I smoke weed there? And he said, you sure can. And I said, I'll be right over. And the rest is history.
There you go. So what were some of these influences that shaped? You said you guys listened to the same music. What were you guys into in 2015?
Definitely like Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And as we started getting a little older, it kind of became more into Fish and Dead and Dopapod and other jam bands that are kind of around this area. But yeah, we started with definitely like a big kind of classic rock or like 90s rock.
We all shared this thing that like our dads gave us the music to grow up on. And that was a pretty good start.
All right, there you go. This rapper Wax out of San Diego, I talked to the other day.
Oh, sweet.
His first band was a cover band for Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There you go.
That's twice in a week now that I've heard them. I'm a little bit older, and I kind of missed it,
Right.
The Under the Bridge video, I remember that, but I was busy being a knucklehead and listening to other things at that time in my life.
I would say Chili Peppers was the first thing to put the funk in Dysfunktone. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
I love it. It's they're a good jumping off point, I think, because you do have the funk. Let's get into this. You guys have the funk there, you do, but you have some pretty complex arrangements, I guess, for lack of a better term. How do you approach the songwriting in the group?
It's always something a little different. Like sometimes a song will come from a demo that one of us makes at home and sends around to the guys. Like Rob will make like a fully fleshed out demo on his laptop, send it to us, ask us for about 3 weeks to listen to it until we finally do. And then, and then we'll kind of start learning it as a band. And then it'll take shape based on the way that we start messing with it. Or sometimes a song comes from us like jamming at rehearsal and we're like, well, that riff was really cool. Like do that again. And then it becomes a whole other thing. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like an idea that one of us has that like Dakota, who can't really play a melodic instrument, he'll just kind of sing us something and we'll try our best to interpret it. And it jumps off from there. There's a few different ways that it happens.
Nice. Very nice. So you guys have what? 3 EPs. You got the single, obviously, you put out with Matt. You have an album out, Collective Perspective. Do you feel like your songwriting, do you feel like there's an arc, a progression to what you started doing in 2015 and what you're coming up with now?
Absolutely. I think we like found it right around the time of Collective Perspective, sort of, and then we really honed it from there. Like that was the first time that I think we really were like, okay, we're starting to really figure out what we want to sound like and how we want to do this. And then from there, it really started to evolve way beyond that. I think Rob, when he started playing keys, also, it took us to, because for the first few years, he didn't, Rob, if you want to get into that a little bit.
Oh yeah, just the first few years, it was just 2 guitars. Actually, Brandon played synth and keys at our first few shows.
Yeah, that was a thing.
So we flipped at some point. Yeah, so then I started playing keys, I believe 2019. And it was, it's funny because we just started getting really good and got a good momentum going. And then, 2020 happened.
Right. Now, what album, when did Collective Perspective come out? What year?
2019, I think.
2019. So Tone Home came out after quarantine. Were those songs written during quarantine?
Yeah.
And then released? Okay. How did that affect how you guys ended up working? Were you guys able to see each other, or were you close enough that you could get together still, or were you all stuck apart and virtual?
It was weird. For like getting together to rehearse, we actually wound up playing outside. We would set up a couple of like easy ups, and we set up a mixer to use in-ears so we wouldn't be too loud. And for a few months we played outside, until it got cold. Trying to be all 6 feet apart about it. And it did the trick. It was a little crazy, but it did the trick. And then for actually recording the EP, we did it all at home. I mean, I went over to Dakota's place and helped him engineer the drums in his basement. And we had to wear masks and everything and just play it safe with the COVID thing. But everything else we just sent around from our homes. And then, I mixed it on my computer at home. And, we couldn't really get together much during that time. And there were obviously no shows. I think we tried to play one show in October of 2020 or 2021. I forget. And we got about like 20 minutes into our set before they cut it off, because it was like the first day of the curfews or something. It was a weird time.
It was a very strange time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it helped you guys as a band? Quarantine, COVID, not COVID, but the quarantine period. I've had bands say that they got off the road, forced them to, they Mark from the Disco Biscuits said he practiced more during that period than he ever had in his life.
Right. I think it definitely, in a very good way, it forced us to start working on like more material and just like writing in general, because I think us all having more time on our own was like, Rob, for example, was just like bored all the time with nothing to do. So he was just writing all the time and was just writing shit constantly. And then it made it so that when we were actually together, it was so brief and so tenuous that we were extremely motivated during that time. Like, okay, let's use this time effectively. Let's like not waste any time. Let's write. Let's be focused. And I think it started to really teach us like how just a better way to be more productive at practice, to really figure out how to flesh out ideas more quickly and more proactively together, things like that.
Nice.
Yeah. I feel like it definitely just like kind of helped us as like people, kind of like we all grew up during that experience, I felt like. So when we came back, we were just like very grateful to be with each other.
All right. And you came back with some new material, I guess, that had never been played live. Do you normally try to workshop stuff live before you record it, or are you guys in the camp of let's record it and then show the world?
We usually play it a bunch live first.
Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah,
find
a lot of the
helps.
time, our songs are almost not even fished until we've played it a few times live, because we're like, all right, that worked, that didn't work, But I do think it would be fun to do something one day, like an EP where no one's heard any of the songs yet, and then we put it out, down the road sometime. That would be cool.
Right. Well, Tone Home was kind of like that, I guess, huh?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point.
So as you keep adding all this stuff, and I guess when you were ready to get back and started playing live again, does some songs become casualties and just disappear, like some of the stuff off Illegitimate Business or something?
Yeah.
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 So it's because like we wrote them when we were kids.
Yeah.
I always wonder about Trey singing Golgi Apparatus, and I know it's at this point it's just it's beyond, you know, it's become meta almost, I guess, because he's so old. But you know,
Well, that's the funny part. We still play the older stuff that's silly. We don't play the older stuff that's like sappy.
right?
Like the funny stuff, stuff about pigs robbing banks and muffins who sell drugs and all that. We still play that. That stuff we love. But the like sappier stuff that we stay away from a little bit more.
I hear you. So what are some of your hits? If somebody was like, what is the Dysfunktone sound? What are you throwing at them?
Tough question.
Strawberry Cough definitely sticks out to me.
Yeah, that's true. Strawberry Cough is pretty recognized by our friends, you know.
And
Right.
I think it's a very, very good musical representation of like what Dysfunktone really does. Like it's got that electronica jam bandy sound, but it's also like metal at the same time, and that is very much like, for me anyway, a huge part of like what we do is that bizarre cross section between like progressive electro jam and like just straight up like metal.
Can we call that the Long Island sound?
Yes, absolutely, because we kind of do jokingly but also seriously call it that. So yes.
Nice, I love it. All right, you play guitar. You have, you know, sometimes you have the two guitar attacks. Sometimes you have the keyboard and the guitar. Do you guys approach the improvisation part differently depending on what the configuration is?
They probably do. I don't. Why don't you guys talk about that?
Yeah, I feel like a kind of I don't know, especially when I play keyboard, I feel like it's a different role unless it's kind of like I'm trying to do a lead thing. But I like to when I find myself playing keys, I kind of like to be a supportive role. But you know, sometimes it can go straight into like I don't realize that I'm doing a clav solo because Brandon kind of laid out. You know,
Right.
Kind of depends on the situation for sure.
It takes different shape in every jam, I feel like. I don't know, a lot of the times when Rob plays keys or I hear him start laying into a keyboard thing, I'm kind of like, you know, let me rephrase. When he started playing keys, I realized it was a time for me to like focus more on what I was doing because I sort of can't like hide behind him, so to speak. You know, like when there's no other guitar, then the only guitar sound is me. So I'm like, all right, I better be super tight, you know. And
No drop notes.
yeah, and it just gives us a different perspective, you know, like him being able to switch instruments like mid jam or do it like play only keys for a whole song and have only one guitar. It's just like, yeah, it changes the perspective.
Yeah.
There you go.
And it'll influence like the mood that I try to create as a result. Like not necessarily if he's playing keys or guitar, more of just what sound he's making in general. If he's playing guitar and it's super heavy and like distortion-y, I'm gonna probably be like, I could use some double kick here, make it heavy. If he's playing like piano or something like that, I'll be like, okay, this is would probably do better as, you know, a little more laid out, quiet, some nice sizzly ride stuff.
Actually, I wish you would put more double kick over the piano.
Are you guys in ear?
Yeah.
Okay. And you have a talkback mic?
Yeah, I do.
Just
Okay.
Dakota has a talkback mic.
Oh,
For now.
nice. So you could be in their heads.
Well, yeah, and it's fun too because I don't know any like music theory or melodic cues. So like I can't tell them like, oh, go to B or A or like all I can do is give them very basic ideas that I am able to articulate. Like oh guys, make it heavy or like literally like something like that. Like very basic, which is cool because I feel like it allows for a really broad interpretation of anything that I'm saying. You know, I'm not saying go to A. I'm saying get heavy. That could mean a million different things. So it's like it allows for these really, a lot of the time what will end up happening is not at all what I was expecting based on what I said. And those jams are the ones I enjoy the most. Like that's 10 times more fun than, you know, than what I was thinking originally.
Do you guys practice improvisation? Do you, like, I know Fish famously had their drills that they did to try to force themselves to think in terms like that. When you guys practice, do you do anything like that?
Let's say in the songs themselves, we'll try to try to get somewhere, especially just to see how the transition would feel out especially if we're adding it somewhere that's not in the typical arrangement of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like with the time we have, we typically just try to like write or you kind of let the improvisation actually go on stage, so we don't like lose the juice at home.
Right.
Which weirdly works better than you'd expect, honestly.
Right. I mean, if you practice too much, then it isn't going to have that fresh.
Yeah, I think we used to practice jamming a lot, and then I feel like a lot of the time on stage, our jams were a lot shorter and more stale than we'd care for. And then once we stopped practicing jamming at home as much, and we just kind of save it for on stage, the jams just really seem to just stretch out and get way more organic and
inspired.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
So do you guys have a bunch of shows on Bandcamp? Who does that? Who's your person who's mastering the shows? And okay, now do you other guys listen back?
Oh yeah.
Now is there a disconnect ever for you between what you felt when you walked off stage and listening a week later to the show itself?
Oh,
all the time.
Almost always
Every
skewed
time.
in the positive direction, though, for me. I always get off stage like, oh, man, I hated that. And then I listen to the show, and I'm like, that was sick. So it's almost always skewed in the more positive direction later on.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like usually when I feel really good after a show, then I listen back, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't that great, you know? But when I feel really bad after a show, I'll listen back, and like Dakota said, it'll be skewed in the positive. But yeah, it is funny how that works. But usually it's just fun to listen back, and like I'm like an audio nerd, so I like to hear how the recordings came out and mix them and do my thing, and it's cool that the guys support that.
I love it. I think it's one of our greatest and most important like assets. I think it's like the fact that we for 10 years now have been like recording every practice that we have, and then we get to go back and listen to literally every single thing that we did at practice, every little variation on every it's such a tremendous tool, I think.
Right.
Absolutely.
I hear that from everyone. I mean, famously, Garcia pushed Lesh down the steps after a show one night, and then they used that Dark Star on Live Dead. Might be the best recording of Dark Star.
That's funny. I didn't know that's that. Wow, I never knew that. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite version of that song.
It is. I can hear that in my head. I can almost close my ears and just listen to the such a beautiful album. Such a beautiful album. So you guys you mentioned the Dead before. Phil passed away recently. That was it was a little heartbreaking for me. You want to talk a little bit about, because you guys don't sound like, I don't hear the Grateful Dead really in what you do, but I feel like the spirit of it's there. You want to talk a little bit about your relationship with them? Like just as listeners and fans?
Yeah, is one of you want to take that one, or you want me to?
You could start, Dak.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, the Dead is a huge part of my life. Like, not so much in the way I play, but more of just our whole lifestyle, our whole way of being. Everything goes back to the Dead and just this world that they created. So naturally, after like when I got into the scene when I was younger, the Dead eventually ended up becoming a massive part of my life and everything. And yeah, I think eventually it just like for everyone, I think in this type of music, I think eventually it just clicks. I'm like, I remember for me, I wasn't super into it at first. I was more into like Fish and the Disco Biscuits. And then one day it just clicked, and I was just kind of like, wow, this is the most beautiful, profound thing I've ever heard.
Right.
And yeah, I think that in a very indirect way, that comes into like everything we do in like in just like the freedom, the spirit of it. Like, oh, this is gonna go from being super pretty to just being like heavy metal all of a sudden, even though it makes no sense. Why? Because we want to. And that's kind of how like Jerry's at, or like any of them, and that's how they're at. They were like, we just want to do what we want to do. Like, we don't care if you want to dance to it. We're going to play a 30-minute song and you're going to like it because it's, you know, and that spirit, I think, like, I love the Dead musically, but even just, I think that spirit and that energy and that just universe is such a massive, like, tremendous part of what we do and why we do it, how we do it, and everything.
Yeah, to speak on that for a second, for me, it was a similar thing. I wasn't super into it at first, and then you listen and listen and listen, and then eventually, like, the light turns on. Yeah, exactly. It's like a switch. And you know, like, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I used to hate Jerry Garcia's voice. I would just be like listening to "It Must Be the Roses," and I'm like, how can anyone? Yeah, I don't know, like, over and over, and I'm like, you know, but eventually it clicked. I'm sorry, but no, but yeah, and as Dakota said, I share the same feeling. It became like the most beautiful and profound thing I had heard. And there was something really important that I took away from it, which was that the Dead had this, I don't know if it's a loose tightness or a tight looseness, but it's just this, like, the idea of the jams, like, flowing in an organic way, that I think that is what translates in our music. So we may not sound like the Dead, but we take this influence of, like, this looseness and this openness with ourselves and with each other when we're playing.
No, there you go.
Yeah, I feel like they both kind of described it for me pretty well. Like, I wasn't really a big fan other than a few songs when I was a kid. And then basically once I was 16 and started to experiment with life and, you know, things, it started to click for me.
It made more sense.
Yeah,
I'm
that
with
helped.
you.
The main thing, especially with our band, is just that we take the idea of improvisation from them and, you know, jazz and blues. But a big part of that, you know, the ability to do it with, like, rock music kind of starts with them.
Right. Yeah, the community, right? You guys, you know, the community and the jam band community obviously comes from them, and the collaborations, the willingness to collaborate. You've played with Dopapod, Talk. I know. I guess you've had AC play with you, and
Yeah,
you've
he's
had
had
some
it
of the
with
guys from Dopapod play with you. How do those collaborations influence your music?
You guys want to talk about the Dopapod influence? That's a YouTube answer right there.
I mean, as far as, like, that specific instance where those guys would sit in with us, it was sort of just like, I don't know, maybe wake up call is the right phrase. Like, you know, when Rob Campa starts playing guitar on stage with you, you suddenly realize, like, what guitar is, you know. And I'm sure Rob felt similarly with, like, AC playing his keyboard. You know, it was like going to school, and I'm like, in my head, like, geez, I better, like, jam with this guy in a way that connects, you know. And you know, you try to just drop those notions and just flow with it, but it was a little bit, you know, not scary, but just like
Intimidating, maybe.
intimidating. Yeah, intimidating, but in a way that's like, I've been listening to Dopapod since I was in high school, you know.
Right.
That's over 10 years.
You were ready. You've been training for that moment.
I wish I had trained more, but you know, it was more of just like a realizing that I'm on the right path kind of thing, and, like, you know, I'm playing with somebody who influenced me, and that was amazing, and, like, you know, hope to do it again. And you know, those guys, Dopapod, and their sound has always just been, like, in my heart, you know. Yeah.
Those jams weren't short. I definitely remember that. I remember Rob Campa. We played like a 24-minute version of a song with him, and Chuck.
We pulled it out of them.
And Chuck, we actually played the longest version ever in history of the band of the song that we played with him. That was almost 20 minutes. And all I really remember from either of those jams was me just thinking, do not drop the ball. Like, you need to be more on right now than you've ever been in your life.
Yeah, I remember because Rob sat in with us first and used my guitar, and then he handed me back my guitar, and then Chuck was like, "Can I sit in?" And I was like, "I have to play guitar now? Fuck."
It's not the magic on it, though. It's still
Yeah, he left a little magic on it. Yeah.
It sucked changing those strings.
Right, exactly. So, you guys are in Long Island. What is the scene like that around there? We talked to some bands that are from like Ohio, other places, and there probably isn't too much going on. But I guess Long Island. I mean, what is that where Nightingales was years ago? Where like God Street and Blues Traveler and all them got their start?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I don't think so though.
I think
I've never
maybe
heard
Blues
of Blues
Traveler.
Traveler being from Long Island.
I don't know. Yeah.
I know
the
God
scene
Street was from New York. God Street Wine was from New York. He had the Spin Doctors would play. John O'Manson, I guess, was all those Nightingales band from the early 80s. Anyway, tell me about Long Island. What's the club? Where do I go if I want to hang out with some jam band people on Long Island?
You'd probably look no further than Industry in Huntington if I had to.
Yeah.
If I had to, that's pretty much like Long Island's interesting scene wise. It's like mostly it's a lot of like punk and pop punk and 90s nostalgia cover stuff. It's like a lot of that, which is great. It's cool. It's just it's not what we do. So we've kind of had to, along with the other jam cats in Long Island, we've kind of had to like form our own like niche. And like there was this little small club like 10 years ago called the Velvet Lounge that we used to play at out in East Long Island. And that was like this interesting like melding of the minds for all of the local like heady hippie kids who just wanted to like not necessarily be playing punk or whatever. They kind of just wanted to like do their own thing. And I feel like we kind of got our start out there in like Eastern Long Island and then kind of started to like pull it back a little bit towards the Western part, towards us.
Right. Do you feel like it helps? Or is it supportive, the scene, you think?
Yeah. I'd say in Long Island, it's really good. It's harder to get people to come to the city because it's hard to get to the city.
Right.
But it's funny, like I find like we do better in other cities sometimes.
Right. Well, you guys, you told me you've been from Maine to North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
But you haven't broken through to like Pittsburgh or that far west yet, Buffalo kind of thing.
2025, I think, is what we're aiming for on there.
We did play Buffalo.
We have played Buffalo. We have played Buffalo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Buffalo.
Okay.
Ironworks.
Okay, nice. Oregon Fairchild, they're the Buffalo, I guess, band that I'm most into now. I don't know if you've ever heard them. They're an Oregon trio.
Yeah,
those guys are great.
We were big we were big Aqueous kids too when Aqueous was doing their thing.
Right. Now Mike played with Satin with Spafford. That was interesting.
Yeah, I saw that at Northlands, I think.
Right. I mean, I tell you, the road, the industry. We just mentioned Spafford. Jordan is moved on from the band. Dopapod coming to the end of the year. Twiddle last year stopped. Doing what Dopapod, however far their tour's going. You want to talk a little bit about the road? I mean, you guys are younger, so I guess it isn't as it isn't as like 20 years in of doing it, but you want to talk a little bit about the road, the industry. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I have a couple thoughts. For one, like the bands that you mentioned, it was hard to not feel a little bit of like a discouragement to see their end, but ultimately, like even though you hear them as the music in your head, but they are actually people, they're humans, and what they're doing has an end to it, and it's something that will happen to us eventually. Everybody stops eventually. But it was kind of hard.
Bob Weir, everyone but Bob Weir,
except Bob Weir. Yeah. Strong like a bull, Bob Weir. But but yeah, it was a little bit hard to digest. Seeing bands that seem to have upward success sort of call it quits, but they obviously have their reasons, and it's healthiest for them to do that. For us on the road, it's always been sort of like a climb. It's a little tough sometimes. We might drive all the way to North Carolina and play to nobody, or maybe have on the same run have a great show the next day, and you might be feeling super down and discouraged about the entire battle, one day, and then a great show hits and you're like, oh, that's why we do this. And I think probably the hardest part is finding the connections to break into these scenes. I mean, one of the things that we've been doing that works really well is just not contacting venues exactly, but contacting bands from local scenes out there and making connections with them, making friends with them, having them out to our little scene and they have us out to their little scene, and it kind of grows from there. One thing that's worked out well for us is like a Connecticut scene, connecting with the bands out there has been great. Trying to get more into like Pennsylvania, Philly, and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. Any of you guys have any thoughts on the road?
I mean, I will say pretty much all of my favorite shows from this year, like that I think are our best performances, are almost all from Bridgeport and New Haven.
Okay.
Like I always think we do well in Connecticut. Yeah, I think it's like Brandon said. I think it's so much of it is just like taking it as it is. Like we might play a show in the city, which is near where we're from, and it's not that great of a show. And then we drive 4 or 5 hours to some random place the following night, and we play a packed show until 1 a.m. for a bunch of and it's like, and like Brandon said, then it's like, oh, okay, this is totally why we do this, because that is the greatest feeling in the world. So it's like you have to be able to take it all as it is. And I think something that Matt Ruffino, actually, funny enough, said to us while we were recording Circadian Rhythms, and it really, really stuck with me. He said, it's only music. It's unbelievably profound and it's unbelievably important. However, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be what you love. It's supposed to make you feel good, and it's not supposed to stress you out and make you feel shitty and everything. And I say those words to myself almost at least once, at least every single day. I say, dude, it's only music. And I think that's a very, very important part of the whole road process and all of that, for me anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah, I find touring to be interesting because it's it's a lot of work to get there, even just to get it even started. But I find it just to be really fun to get to travel and get to meet new people, move around. Like we've made a lot of really cool friends just this year, let alone the past 2 years. Just kind of traveling around, playing at festivals, meeting new people. Like we play this festival called Froggy Days, and like I just can't wait to go there to hang out. Like to play would be fun, but I mostly just want to chill.
Right. I hear you. I tell you what, do not be disheartened about nobody being there. This past Saturday was the 35th anniversary of the first time I saw Fish, and there were 40 people there, 39 people or so besides me. So I wouldn't stress. And that was what, 6-7 years into their career, 89. It was
right.
6 years in. So,
they can't all be bangers,
Those kind of experiences give us really important lessons, because if we play a show that's like underattended, then we're like, okay, we clearly didn't market this very well, because there are people in this city that want to go see a jam band or something at their local venue, and they don't even know that it's happening. And we don't, it's just us 4 guys. We don't have a crew or a staff or, marketing people. I mean, we have one booking agent who helps us sometimes. And then, other than that, it's just on us to get into all of those little details, making sure we promote well and put a little money into the advertising and,
right.
We learn a lot from those experiences. Yeah. Merch is huge because we got to make some money back,
You got to.
Yeah, I'd say we try to learn as much from the stuff that does work as we do from the stuff that doesn't. Like we try and just be learning from everything all the time. It's all fodder for a learning experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, would you guys welcome something like a label or something saying, "Hey, we want to try to help you guys," or do you see that as maybe more trouble than it's worth to jump into bed with someone like that?
I think it would depend on
it definitely depends
on the whole thing. Like I would love if it was somebody that, or a label that was like understood us, and really got what we're about and everything. It would be great to have some help. But if it was some people who didn't really get us, and that would, like you said, probably end up just hurting us more than helping us, or just being a bigger headache than maybe any of us are prepared to deal with.
I feel like as long as our songs are allowed to be 10 minutes,
Exactly. That's important.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of contact from I mean, what seems like just bots or, labels or agencies that are just looking to get your, $1,000, and they'll set up some kind of package for you. And it's like, that obviously we've never bit on any of that stuff. What we would love is someone who was really passionate about the band and helping us grow, and where it could be mutually beneficial. That would be great. We'd definitely be open to that.
Right. Now, when you guys are thinking about your EPs and the album, were any of them released actually on vinyl, or was it all just Bandcamp downloads?
Bran actually has illegitimate business on vinyl.
I made a one-off vinyl of our first EP because I was so excited about it.
Like the Wu-Tang album.
Yes, it's just as valuable, actually. I think Martin Shkreli bid on it. But anyway. I would love. We haven't done that. I would love to do a vinyl release. I think maybe our next album or EP. It's important because people buy those things, and now they make it more accessible to artists. Like I think even Bandcamp has a vinyl program now where you can order directly from them and they produce it and everything. We haven't done it yet. I would love to, though. I think it's important. Everybody loves vinyl now.
It's something you can hold. I feel like the guy in the Gold commercial. And you actually get something out of it. I mean, it's fascinating to me that this 100-year-old technology of a record that you put on a record player to play is like the preferred thing for audiophiles.
Right, it sounds
today.
It's a collectible.
Go good.
No, that's it. I was just gonna say it's a collectible. It's a tangible piece of music,
right.
So that's why it's cool.
I wonder if there's any way to set up, like, I don't know much about NFTs or Bitcoins or any of that, but it seems to me there should be some way to sell albums that way, where you guys could get more money for just the audio files of it because someone would own a unique copy of it.
Right.
That's an interesting concept. Just like selling off one take of song that's unique.
Yeah.
That could be something to try one day.
I'm open to any and all ideas that involve artists getting paid more for making music.
Yeah.
How does Spotify treat you? Any traction at all off there, or did you guys get screwed with the minimum listens now?
We do okay on Spotify. I mean, money wise, we make absolutely nothing, but like streaming wise,
buy a pizza.
Okay.
Buy a pizza. I think we could buy a piece of gum.
Yeah, exactly. We do the best on, I'd say, Bandcamp, and like we do okay on YouTube, but Bandcamp I feel like is where most people go to like listen to, because it's the live stuff. It's the best representation of what we're really doing.
Yeah, we haven't been able to monetize YouTube yet. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, smash that subscribe. Go over to Dysfunktone and
follow.
But
what are you trying to get to 500 subscribers? That's what I'm trying to get to on this. Is the 500.
You have to get a lot. But we only post full shows for now, which is probably a mistake. But
right, yeah, I was looking. I went on there. You guys definitely should stick your EPs and albums up there as playlists.
That's a good point. Tracks. Yeah. I think since they're on the YouTube automatically, when you do the streaming distribution service, they make like Dysfunktones like a topic, and all our music is there. But we haven't connected it to our actual account, so that's probably a good idea.
Right. So good. Okay. So what do you guys see next year? I guess you're trying to expand the tour a little more, and then maybe even further, 3-4 years down the road, where do you see this thing going?
Oof, that's a crazy question. I guess for me, I would love to really just start expanding in like the most tangible way, just like playing bigger festivals, playing bigger venues, getting connected with bigger bands. Like my goal, I want to play with the Disco Biscuits. That's my like bucket list, like the thing that I want to do, that I will be like, that's awesome. Like I just want to play a show or open for the Disco Biscuits. But yeah, I try And like, as much as we try and think about like expansion, for me, like I said, I just try and like take it as it is. Like when we play a dope show where we kick ass afterwards, I'm like, there was people there who came to see that. That to me is successful in some regard or another. So like that, whatever. But yeah, 3-4 years, I would just like to have played. Let's just say we've played 10 states. Now by then, I would like to have played 30. You know, I would like to have another 2 albums and just constantly upwardly and outwardly expanding in every way possible, really.
You know, I laugh when these bands have been going to Montana. I'm like, that is such a choice to go play Montana.
Yeah, like I think Mo did like an event there or something like that.
Right. Goose played there a couple of years back. I mean, I guess Goose is big enough now that there's a Connecticut band for you, huh?
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Get it.
Yeah, I saw them at a festival once with like 10 people in the crowd.
That's wild.
And Rick got to play at the Kennedy Center thing for the Dead. He was on the Friend of the Devil.
Their rise from, like Rob said, seeing them in front of like 10 people to it's insane.
I tell you, the craziest thing at this Kennedy Center thing, there's only like a 30-second clip, but Queen Latifah comes out and does Shakedown Street, and she nails it. Unbelievable.
I didn't see that. Gotta check that out. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's very
cool. Who knew Queen Latifah was a Dead fan?
I thought so. I could see it.
So what are we looking at for tour? The end of the year? You doing a New Year's show next year? Anything on the books?
No, we have nothing right now. Book us.
we got something in the works.
No, we do have actually a couple festivals locked down, but we're going to be building up a spring tour. We're going to take most of the beginning of the next year focusing on recording the album. So like these 2, we have a couple sessions booked with Matt. We're going to nail down our drums and probably basic tracks and spend a good couple of months fleshing out that album. And then we're probably going to go heavy into touring right after that. Don't have a ton on the books right now, but yeah, we're working on networking with some venues right now and some other bands for next year.
We should stream your practices on YouTube.
That's interesting.
I'll look inside. I'll look inside.
So much of what we say at practice would have to be heavily censored.
Yeah. That's fair.
Make it flagged, huh?
Our practices are not a safe space.
They are for us. That's it.
Yeah, they are for us, but that's about it.
Like muted in between every song.
Yeah. But that's an interesting point.
You know, it's all about content.
Absolutely.
You know, or go back and cut some of those videos down into individual songs, and then it's all juice in the algorithm. You guys know that.
That's
you
definitely
don't need to hear from the old guy about how to work the internet.
No, we need to get better at the content thing because it is everything now, and that's how people get noticed and gain their internet
the Goose
fame.
The bingo they did during COVID in 2020, I think, is what really launched them. You know,
yeah, it was like huge for them. I remember that
they were the only game in town.
Yeah,
it's true.
They kind of cornered the market.
And that creativity, like you have to have that content creative mind. We're like musicians, and so it's sort of hard for us to adjust to this new world that we're faced with. But it's definitely something for us to work on.
Right. Yeah, you film your next practice, cut something out of it, even if you cut 10 minutes out. Anyway, anything else you guys want to throw out before we wrap up?
We're playing this week. Our last 2 shows of the year are this weekend.
Okay.
We're playing in New Paltz on Friday at this place called Snugs that we love. We're playing 3 sets. That's going to be a fun one. Nice long night. And then that venue I mentioned earlier, Industry, is going to be our final show of the year. That should be a hometown throwdown banger. Usually our shows there are very well attended.
Do you guys do set lists beforehand, or you just call songs up on stage?
We write them beforehand, but they get adjusted a lot in the moment.
Right.
And yeah, definitely.
Is it a band thing, or is there one guy who does it?
Mostly Rob.
Mostly Rob. Cool.
I'm just I'm kind of like this. I collect all the stats, so I want to see if we played in this city, let's not do the same songs, or if we did do it, let's put it not at the same spot, And then
Right.
from there, we just adjust at the show because we're like, oh, wait, there's like 50 people here dancing. Why are we going to play our softest song?
Right. I
Yeah.
hear you. I hear
Some
ya.
stuff gets called on the fly. Yeah.
Yeah. Rob is
Um,
very good with all the stats and stuff and keeping track of stuff like that.
And there you go. Covers.
Occasionally, yeah, like one per show, usually maybe two.
Right. Got to throw that out there. That's another fascinating dynamic. Bands who start as cover bands and bands who start as doing their originals. The bands who start as cover bands and then try to do originals, I don't think it ever really works.
Right.
As
It's
much
funny.
as,
We know some bands that started as cover bands and started doing originals, and that's how they got a lot of their success. It's interesting because their crowd was really into the covers and
Right.
supported that a lot, and then they started throwing in originals, and they were like, "Oh, these guys can write too," And
Right.
we were always kind of like, "Damn."
there was a band called Living Earth, and they were one of the best Grateful Dead cover bands, just smoking, and they put out an album and it sounded like 38 Special. And everyone was like, what happened? Not that there's anything wrong with 38 Special,
Right.
but
Hold on loosely. It's a great tune.
right? Didn't quite make the jump there. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up. Everybody who's watching, please make sure that you like and subscribe. Find us on all the socials. We're at All That Jam Pod. We're going to have links down in the bottom for these guys' stuff, their Bandcamp, their Facebook page, and stuff like that. And remember, you guys hold on for a second. I want to talk to you before after we run the outro. And remember, stay beautiful.